You telling me she cut her way through 88 bodyguards before she got to O-Ring?
Oh, still a Chevrolet more than that.
No, it wasn't really 88 of them. They just called themselves the Crazy 88. I guess they thought it sounded cool. Anyhow.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Sleazoids, a podcast where we go down the rabbit hole of 20th century genre fare, from the most influential canon classics to the trashiest exploitation films we can get our hands on, and invite you to tag along and help us in creating a canon of sleaze. Each week is a double feature, Grindhouse style, where we discuss two films loosely related by subject, genre, actor, filmmaker, or even franchise. And at the end of each episode, along with our honorary Sleazoids, which you can become by subscribing on Patreon, do it, we decide on the official ratings and rankings of every film that we cover. Patreon subscribers also get an on-air shout-out and 2 bonus episodes a month when we switch from bi-monthly to weekly shows this coming March, which is not that far away now.
It's coming up.
We're 3 episodes in. We're the first paid episode is 3 episodes from now, so
yeah,
you guys get on that. We highly recommend for the full experience of the show and the warm feeling inside of supporting us, becoming a fellow Sleazoid over at patreon.com/Sleazoids podcast. That's it for the plug. That's the one plug. That's all you guys get for this week. Last week on the show, holy shit, what did we talk about? We talked about Dirty Harry.
Yes,
and Raw Deal.
Raw Deal.
And I guess that was 2 weeks ago now for you guys.
Yeah. For us, this is just craziness.
Yeah, this is absolute madness. But thanks to all of you who listened to that show. We had a lot of fun with that one, especially the Raw Deal section.
Oh, yeah. We pretty much lost our minds on Raw Deal.
Yeah, that Arnold performance is really, truly something to behold.
It's next level.
One of my favorite things I've seen in 2018 so far.
Yes. 100%. Oh, my God. It's become a new favorite for sure.
Yeah,
for the action schlock.
Yeah, and it was really cool to see that a couple listeners had themselves been so enamored by our coverage of the film that they went online and watched themselves and
so,
had similar reactions.
I also need to lose my mind. Such as these people.
It's pretty unbelievable. Anyway, as always, I'm your host, Josh Lewis, and joining me is
Jamie Miller. Welcome back.
Welcome. So last week we did some Violent Men of the Law was the subject, and this week we decided to do the lady side.
Yeah,
violent.
Pretty much the opposite. Too.
Yeah,
it's not of the law. They're more like they're rebelling.
Yeah, they're fighting.
Really.
They're fighting the established law.
That's right.
So these are vengeful women coming back to reclaim what's theirs.
That's right. And they do.
They really do.
They reclaim.
We want to give a shout out to Willow Caitlin, a freelance film writer over at Roger Ebert and The Village Voice, who suggested this double feature for us. We're going to be talking about Kill Bill Volume 1 by Quentin Tarantino, which is breaking our rules a little bit. We're breaking them early.
A little bit.
No consistency here.
Yeah.
You came to the wrong show, bitches.
Welcome.
Yep. So we mostly are trying our best to stick to 20th century genre fare, just as a general rule of thumb. But because Tarantino is so heavily inspired by the exploitation films,
it makes so many references too. Like, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah. We decided that Tarantino, at least in some episodes, is going to be fair game. Yeah. I imagine down the line I might want to do Death Proof. Maybe when we get to some war stuff, we might do Inglourious Bastards. But those are the ones where he's doing his most pulpy subject matter.
They almost belong in that decade. The decades that we watch these films in. Like, they really do. So I feel like we can throw.
If there's any filmmaker who has learned from these films and taken the best of them, Tarantino is among them. Him and S. Craig Zoller, who I would love to talk about someday.
He did Cell Block, the Brawl on 99 or whatever.
Yeah, Brawl on Cell Block 99.
I got all those words mixed up, but it's in there.
Yep, and Bone Tomahawk.
Oh my lord!
So he did a horror western, and then he did kind of like a sleazy brawler prison movie.
Both. He loves his violence, that
both
man.
Insanely violent films. Another guy who seems to be kind of taking the correct lessons from all these films.
Oh, definitely.
But yeah, anyway, so we're going to be talking about Kill Bill Volume 1. Especially this week because we were super pleased to see that our local art house theater did a double bill of both Kill Bills back to back on 35mm film, so we couldn't pass up that opportunity.
It was ridiculous.
Oh, it was such a fun time. It was
the sound too, like the sound, like them busting through tables was just like I felt like I was there.
I watched Kill Bill not that long ago on Netflix, and I'll just say the 35mm experience with the huge sound and the pounding cheeses. It was pretty insane, and to have a big crowd there cheering all the action on, it was a really good time.
And so what a coincidence, the timing.
Yeah,
like I watched it on Netflix just I would say a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
and I was watching it for some reason. Something told me not to rate it, and then next thing you know, like a week later, you were like, "Hey, Highland's doing it," and it just worked out. Like No Tomorrow was awesome.
So we totally decided on this episode before the theater announced that they were doing that because it is the 15th anniversary. So there you go. We're timing this as well. It's the 15th anniversary of Kill Bill. We're talking Kill Bill Volume 1, and we're going to be pairing it with Ito Shun'ya's 1972 film Female Prisoner Number 701, subtitle Scorpion, which eventually became I believe a trilogy of films.
Yeah.
But it is considered one of the best women in prison films and I guess rape revenge films. It's kind of both. It's interesting how that it does both genres because obviously there's a lot of rape revenge films out there. I've seen quite a bit. I Spit on Your Grave, Miss 45, these kinds of things.
Last House on the Left.
Left in its own way. I guess Last House on the Left was one of the very early ones, and it's not actually the protagonist getting revenge.
That's true.
It's the parents getting revenge.
The father, right?
Yeah. And people at the time were shocked by it because I believe the mother gets in on it as well.
Oh,
and gets a little crazy.
See, I haven't seen. I don't think I've seen the original. I've only seen the remake with Jennifer Lawrence.
Oh no, dude! The Wes Craven original is really
I'm sure
good.
that one's much better.
But yeah, I had never seen a women in prison film prior to this one, so
I don't think I have either.
Yeah, so I'm not totally sure how this compares to the rest of the genre, but it seems to be a generally accepted canon, or at least sleazy canon version of this particular genre. But either way, both feature women getting revenge against the violent men in their lives. Very violent men in their lives.
These dudes are just way above scumbag.
Yes.
They are evil.
So yeah, that's going to be today's double feature. So what do you say? Get into it?
Kill Bill.
Kill Bill.
Not too long ago, I was quite the professional. My friends and I, we were the creme de la creme in an exclusive industry. And we all worked for this man, Bill. Then one day, I decided to leave, settle down and start a new life. But when I tried to get out, they did me in.
All right, so we are talking Kill Bill Volume 1, with maybe the occasional glimmer into Kill Bill Volume 2. But we're going to be
There's a couple things I want to mention.
Yes, but we're going to be mostly focusing on Kill Bill Volume 1, which in terms of content playing as a straight revenge picture has a lot more in common with the structure of Female Prisoner. So Kill Bill Volume 1, for those of you who haven't seen it, if there's any of you out there.
For real.
I'm sure
and if you haven't, come on now.
I'm sure most of you are familiar with Quentin Tarantino. But he's a filmmaker who pays homage and is absolutely in love with all things exploitation and grindhouse. And grew up learning all of his film lessons from these films, which is very rare since most people that we see nowadays grew up watching John Ford, Howard Hawks, which I guess is also a Tarantino dude, but Hitchcock, these kinds of guys, these more prestige filmmakers in their day. So Tarantino's
a little more polish, a little more.
So Tarantino's films have this messiness to them. They have this absurdity to them that obviously has got broad appeal now. It didn't back in the day. obviously,
do you have to kind of push through some boundaries when it came to...
I think he did. I think people were objected to some of the level of violence in his films, especially early on when he was on the festival
Revenge
circuit.
is messy, Jan.
Yeah, like that kind of thing. Even when he was just getting around to Kill Bill, but especially Reservoir Dogs, people objected to some of the way that he chose to shoot violence there. Whereas for me, I think he showed that the violence was horrifying.
Yeah.
Like the torture sequence, I think people were a little upset with the music clashing with the actual action, which again, the point.
Yeah.
And
Right.
Pulp Fiction,
Supposed to make you feel some type of way.
and Tarantino doesn't deny in his own way he does love the violence. He does love it, and I do too.
Yep. But that's the thing. It's like people want to act like that isn't a part of us. You know what I mean? Like there's a reason these gory, violent movies are accepted and renowned. You know, like they're respected for a reason, even if they're. I guess you could say that they're kind of disgusting, but there's always reasons for that too. You know? I mean, throughout the film,
there's something primal that you understand about them, where it's two people hitting each other.
Right.
And the emotional connection to that just makes immediate sense. And obviously the visceral impact of and opportunities for filmmaking in that are just so much bigger than two people sitting down in a room.
Yes.
Not that he doesn't love his conversations either.
No.
But either way,
I gotta say, with Kill Bill, he does. I mean, maybe not in Volume 2, but
Volume 2 is a
1,
lot more talky.
Yeah, in Volume 1 though, this one out of all of his films, I find that he focuses less on the dialogue compared to everything
This
else.
is definitely the most action-heavy one, and that's why we were going to get into it, because I think this is among his most violent pieces of just straight beginning to end action.
It's nonstop.
And it has 100% the most violent action scene he's ever put in a movie.
Are you the ending?
Yes,
the
big
88s. The crazy 88s.
The big battle versus the bride versus the crazy 88s or whatever they're called.
Right. Absolute insanity.
But yeah, the basic premise of Kill Bill is that there is a character called the Bride who Uma Thurman wrote with Tarantino. They came up with the character together.
Oh, really?
Yes,
That's cool.
That's why it says the Bride, based on the Bride character by Q and U.
Oh, okay.
Quentin and Uma.
Oh, okay.
So they came up with this character together of this lady on a quest to get back at a manipulative abuser who has pretty physically violent tendencies. But what's interesting is how the film complicates that kind of story. The opening image of the film is one of its most powerful. You have this stark black and white close up of the bride's face, what is very clearly a beaten bride.
Oh yeah.
Who you find out in that scene is pregnant, getting brutally shot in the head.
Yeah.
Over what sounds like this kind of almost charismatic, calm, macho voice that
right.
Carradine has, who plays Bill.
And what's also I found interesting about him is that you learn so much about both characters right there. At least, well, maybe with her you learn more the situation she's in. Mm-hmm. But with him, he has that line where he doesn't think that he's being sadistic. He thinks he's being masochistic because he's
which is an
hurting
important
her.
distinction.
And it's like because like he can only. It almost feels like he can only see his own pain there.
Yeah, it's a very selfish perspective to look at this scene and be like, you might think that I'm that I'm doing this emotionlessly, or I am doing this to hurt solely
but
you.
This hurts me too.
Yeah,
in fact, it hurts me more.
Yeah, which is just like, come on, dude.
But again, the shooting her in the face.
But honestly, what's so amazing about his performance is that you believe it.
Yeah,
like he sells it. Like he's got this kind of like slithery snake charm to him, where you understand the manipulation because you want to believe what he's saying.
It's like a super violent snake oil seller or whatever those are called from the Old West or whatever. Like he just has different intentions other than to sell you things.
Yeah. So what he does is he shoots her in the head right off the bat. Pregnant lady.
Cut to title,
which
sequence.
is a pretty unforgivable act.
And she says that it's his.
And
he doesn't give a rat's ass about that.
No, that is like a 0 to 100 opening shot.
Yeah, for real. They don't waste any time.
Yeah, and from there we get into a bit of a non-linear following of kind of how we got to this situation, what she did to betray Bill that made Bill act, and her own kind of getting comeuppance on Bill for these actions, giving us the title. She's on a mission to kill Bill. But on this mission to kill Bill, she's got a whole bunch of people to go through. And the scene right after that is where she takes on...
Vivica, or Copperhead? Is that
Copperhead,
Copperhead.
yes.
Played by Vivica A. Fox.
Yes. And this is one of the most fascinating scenes for him to begin with, because I would say it's the scene probably the most offended by the violence, or at least the most considerate of the actual acts that she's committing, which is just interesting because obviously later in the film the action gets very cartoony and very fun and joyful, and this one isn't really that way because you
feel like the heaviness behind every hit, and comparatively to
it feels,
when she's just like slicing 8 guys, you kind of feel more fun, whereas this fight is like a street fight.
Well, and especially because the music overpowers a lot of the action later on in the film too, and here there's no music because she pulls up to the house.
Right, yeah, none.
She pulls up to the house. Copperhead realizes who she is, Black Mamba, the bride.
Right away.
And yeah, 100%. They just start beating the shit out of each other.
As soon as the doors
there's
open.
no music. The impacts are so loud. I was like, I could feel the theater shaking while we were watching this.
That sound was ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's very fastly cut where you just see. I mean, the whole movie is kind of cut this way, but you really feel the force of the movement.
He's such a master at taking a 2-second action like frame or scene or shot rather, and making it just like
pop.
Pop, and also the information just gets right into your brain. Like there's no it almost seemed, it's not hypercut by any means, but there are quite a few cuts in that first fight with Vivica and or Copperhead rather. And but you never
you feel the strength of the martial arts filmmaking.
Yes.
Which is that kind of like very heavy but very fast moving like montage style where you're just like, you get one shot where you see like a foot moving and then a table flips and then a knife is being thrown in.
Everything is just like calculated, and it really helps with just taking in the scene and knowing the violence
especially because the choreography is so complicated a lot of the time, and and so in order to feel it, he really emphasizes it in this first scene. And what's interesting is what complicates the scene is obviously that the Copperhead's daughter comes up to the house. And you get a really good joke out of it that there's 2 assassins fighting in a very domesticated home. The little girl who has no idea what's coming in comes in, sees a destroyed living room, and is like, okay.
Yeah, sure, it was the dog.
Yeah, but it gives them a second to kind of cool down, and they start kind of talking and about, the fact that Copperhead was one of the people who betrayed her at her wedding and helped get her killed, and how she, she needs to get her comeuppance for it.
Right.
But what this scene considers by introducing the daughter is kind of like the rippling consequences of what she's about to do.
Yeah. Because now these people have moved on. They're not just these crazy assassins, these highly skilled assassins anymore. This one, at least specifically, Vivica has now, like, she has a family now. Yeah. Like, it's a completely different thing, and they use that in the scene, which is
and what's interesting is that the film doesn't absolve her because of that.
Right.
It complicates it, which is what's interesting. Is it makes.
It doesn't say, "Oh, I can't kill you now. You have a daughter." It's
and the bride even says that, but it makes the bride's decision more, again, complicated is the idea.
Yeah.
Because the big thing that happens is while they're sitting there in the kitchen having the conversation, this exact conversation of, I have to kill you. It's got to happen. And the fact that you have a daughter isn't going to change that.
Yeah. And she has a great line about it where you kind of learn about Uma Thurman's character, where I can't remember the exact line, but it's something like, it's taste I don't lack, it's compassion, love, and something like that. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, she says
I can't remember the line.
It's not rationality.
Rationality,
because it wouldn't be rational to continue that fight at that moment.
Right, exactly.
And she was just like,
it's compassion I lack, and other things. I can't remember
and
the
mercy
list.
And forgiveness and all of this, because letting her know that she's not letting her off the hook for anything that she's done.
And it shows that she's calculated. She has a plan. She wants to exercise that plan, but she's also aware of things and is going to halt that plan if it's necessary.
Yeah, and partway through that conversation is when Copperhead pulls out the gun on her
Yeah.
out of the cereal
And she's
box.
not expecting it too.
No,
which-
she's not, because
yeah.
when that first shot goes off, she's shocked.
Shocked,
And it's
yeah.
I don't know if she gets another shot off. I don't know if she does, but all I know is that if she had aimed better, that would have been the end of The Bride.
Yeah.
She was not ready for it.
Kill Bill ends in the first 15 minutes.
Yep. But she immediately kicks the coffee cup at her, throws a knife right in her chest, and then that's it. And that's what's amazing about that bit, is that the rest of that sequence for the next like 5 to 10 seconds is like just lingering on her lifeless body, where you're like, you just did that. You were having a friendly conversation as if you've known each other for years, you're good acquaintances, and now she's a lifeless body on the floor.
Yeah.
And then as she's pulling the knife out and wiping the blood off, she backs away from the frame to reveal that the little girl just watched that happen.
Yeah.
And she has a brilliant bit of dialogue here where she tells the girl that, you know, many years down the line,
Still upset about it.
yeah, if you still feel raw about it,
Feel raw about it, yeah.
I'll be waiting for you. And what that really
Kill Bill
captures is just that she knows that she is just creating more.
Yeah.
You know, it's a wave of damage.
She's
and
almost created another version of herself now.
exactly, because now she has another person who's going to be out looking for revenge in 20 years.
Yep.
So that there's not an easy, clean revenge.
And
to this.
it's almost amazing that he essentially wraps up the kind of the thesis of the film. It's like, you know, well, revenge is messy, and also, you know, revenge just leads really to more revenge. Vengeance is a rabbit hole you can't really get out.
Yeah,
of.
that she's very clearly traumatized, and she very clearly has unfinished business with these people.
Right.
But I mean,
aware of the consequences of taking these people down, that, you know, might
and
occur.
and again creating a rippling trauma effect where she's hurting more people along the way.
Right.
I believe it's the swordmaster Hanzo who says later in the film, revenge is never a straight line. Mm-hmm. That it's a forest, and that sometimes
you get lost along the way.
Yeah, you'll get lost along the way,
Right.
and that you'll encounter things you didn't intend to encounter. That it's not clean. It's messy as hell.
Right. Because and I think it's also like when, you know, you have that sense of I need vengeance, or, you know, I've obviously never experienced it to her degree.
Yeah.
But, you know, you have some blinders. You don't really think about you think about the people that you want to personally affect, but you don't think about the people that are connected to those people.
Exactly.
You know, so it's hard to.
What's interesting is that
ride that
Tarantino
line.
chooses to hit this right at the beginning, because in another movie like this, that would be the end scene.
Yes.
That would
right.
which is what's most interesting about it.
Yeah.
And I guess in terms of plot, I guess
It
it kind of
technically
is at the
is,
end
yeah,
of the movie.
in a way.
So it's interesting that he shows us this first, because this is where this is the thesis of like a version of this film, but he again complicates that more with his filmmaking and the way that he structures this film. But particularly, a normal revenge movie would end on this sequence, where the fact that she's been had blinders on for so long over this revenge mission, and then bam, she has an awakening that she's causing damage.
Yeah.
This is not the case. Here we see that the bride already knows that and is choosing to do it anyway, which says so much about her character, that this is a conscious choice.
Yeah.
That she knows that she's causing damage. She doesn't need to be told that. She just,
and in a way,
this is so necessary for her.
Right. And in a way, do you think that she justifies even the things that she affects that she didn't want to? Do you think there's a justification in her brain there?
I don't know that justification is the right word. Okay. I think that she needs to do this. I think that that's it. That
she doesn't need the justification, really.
No,
she just feels
she needs her own cathartic closure to this situation.
Yeah.
And I think that she is making the conscious choice that she doesn't care how that happens, that she's going to get it.
Which I guess is kind of like that answer when she responds to the daughter, if you're still raw about it, come get me. She's not saying like, I'm sorry that I had to do this. She's saying, come get me. Like, if you need to do this, if you need to be what I'm doing now,
exactly, because she gets it, because she's looking for that closure right now, and she just got some of it.
Yeah.
And she's saying, look, if you are in a state like I am now, and you need closure late in your life, come get me. I'm all yours.
That's truly brilliant shit.
Yeah, no, it's a great sequence to open the film on. Holy shit, we're only on the opening of the film.
We're like 16 minutes in.
But either way, this is a really important part of understanding.
It really
this film.
is, yeah.
Because what the rest of the film goes on to be is a a homage to this kind of Shaw Brothers martial arts, kung fu, samurai style filmmaking. I love the wire action that they have, where where the movements are so clearly not stuff that real people could be doing.
No, like they're climbing up vertical walls,
it's
they're steps. It's like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon stuff.
Yeah, and the movies that he kind of took the most from were revenge films themselves, as well as a film called Lady Snowblood, which specifically the scene in the snow with Lucy Liu comes from that.
Oh, okay.
And
it works so well with the red and the white. Like contrast there, it's
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Which again, Female Prisoner does a little bit of that too.
Yeah.
So what kind of happens for the rest of the film is we get some more complications to this idea, where we are introduced to, we get it basically the rest of the film is an extended flashback.
Yeah, it really is. Until we've really discussed it, I've never realized how important that first scene is. I mean, it really just gives you the plot all there, and then the rest of it is kind of an exercise in his genre referencing and
well, and then further developing the ideas, right?
Right,
it's like
but he lays them out for you right away, and then just expands
like in
on
the
them.
first 10 minutes,
right?
There you go.
Rather than unveiling them slowly, he gives it all to you right away, and then just kind of gives them great detail throughout the film.
Yeah,
it's very cool.
So the next point that he touches on is he gets into the idea of Bill kind of, not only is he manipulative, but he wants to control them and their bodies in like interesting ways. And what it gets to with that is we have the flashback of her getting up after being shot. She was in a coma for something like 4 years or something like that. And we get a really disgusting
meet old Buck who likes to fuck.
Yep. Yeah, we get a really disgusting business arrangement going on where they're using the corpses as sex dolls. And we see her get her revenge on both Buck and the like male nurse
guy,
who is like who is arranging that. And what's interesting about this is that when we see Bill in frame in the first film, especially because this is not at all how you see Bill in the second film. In the first film, you only ever see him just outside of frame with his hands like touching faces of women. That's it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Or like holding a sword.
It's either violence or sex, it seems.
Yeah, he's kind of got that Blofeld James Bond thing going on where you only see like his arm and the cat.
right.
You know?
Instead he's stroking the samurai sword.
Yeah, so he's stroking the samurai sword or he's touching like Sophie's face, or in the opening scene he's touching the bride's face. And you kind of get this feeling of that he just feels like he has complete control over whatever he touches. He's touching.
Whatever he comes across.
So that's what this scene where she wakes up from her coma and she literally can't control her own body comes from. And that's why we get this big kind of emotional relief that comes out of her just being able to wiggle her big toe.
Yeah.
Which is another way for Tarantino to get feet in the frame, which is something he always looks for an opportunity to do. But while she's doing that, we get introduced to Oren, Lucy Liu's character.
In a full-blown anime.
Yeah, full-blown anime sequence.
So cool. It's like 20 minutes, too. Like,
yeah,
it's like
I don't know if it's 20 minutes, but it is long
it just
as fuck.
feels,
it's at least 10.
feels like a full episode of like an anime. Like, it's
sure.
unbelievable. And it's so well done, like the blood splatter. Do you know is there like a certain anime that he's referencing? What with like the overextended blood splatters and just like, because there's like waterfalls of blood in this. It's definitely made to be.
Yeah, that I don't know. I haven't watched enough anime to say for sure. But I imagine he's a big fan of like some of these like really dark animes from the 90s and whatnot.
I'm gonna have to dive into some of those now that I've seen just that style. I wonder if I want to, after this, just as a thing, I'm gonna look up the animator and see if maybe he's someone that maybe he's referencing directly that he got.
Yeah, like how he does with like Sonny Chiba and the Street Fighter. And the other guy,
Gordon Lao Ching, I want to say something like that. I know it's Liu. Liu, but
yeah, and I mean same with David Carradine too, who plays Bill. He's obviously an exploitation actor from back in the day.
Oh yeah.
So Tarantino just gets to kind of play with action figures for a living. He just gets to see all these people who he has loved for his entire life and gets to remake their best scenes with them and mess with them in his own creative way.
Yeah, which I gotta just to briefly say with Gordon, the guy that plays the leader of the Crazy 88s,
Yeah.
and also he plays Wai Pei Wei. Pei Wei?
May.
The guy he's got
Big white beard in Kill Bill 2.
Yeah, the guy with the white beard. But it's a direct reference from a character that he played in the 70s from a film called, it's like Clan of the White Lotus or something like that.
Yes.
And he plays
No,
a
I've heard of that
dude
one.
with the big old white eyebrows, and he's wise, and I just gotta say that's gotta be such a moment for Tarantino to have the guy that you're honestly referencing from that film play that character in your film. Like, that's crazy.
Well, I was going to say, I don't know if you know, but David Carradine was on a show in the 70s called Kung Fu, where he was like a Kung Fu master type thing. So that's
awesome.
So a lot of people kind of read this as like, this is if the Kung Fu guy aged. This is who he is now.
This is who he became. The leader of the top assassins in the world.
Yeah, but what we get introduced to O-Ren, and I think that the heart and soul of Volume 1 comes from this back and forth that happens between Uma Thurman and Lucy Liu. Because what kind of ends up happening throughout this whole thing, and what Uma Thurman starts to realize as she's killing all of these different people that she's pursuing, is that these people are former acquaintances of hers, probably even friends.
Yeah.
And that, she doesn't feel that necessarily maybe they are the worst people in the world, or that maybe even if they are, like O-Ren they do not pull punches with some of the things that she does. That scene where she
cuts off the dude's head.
runs across the table and
shovel.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah, O-Ren is ruthless. But
and her performance of her screaming, it's just there's so much authority in that dialogue.
Oh yeah,
That could have
Lucy
been,
Liu is great in that.
Yeah, that could have been kind of cringy, but she just nails it. That guttural that she gives when she's delivering the line. Oh my god.
Yeah, but what kind of happens is that the bride realizes that maybe even if she is a terrible person, that the bride's kind of a terrible person too, in the same ways, I guess, is what she realizes.
Yeah.
That they're in another world, the roles have been switched for them.
Because when you think about it, I mean, what have they done that the bride hasn't?
Well, it's just like, imagine O-Ren is the one who ended up being the one that fell in love with Bill.
Right.
And then, Uma probably would have betrayed O-Ren. So that's just kind of how it works. And that's kind of what happens, is that while because the rest of the movie is just the bride making her way to O-Ren in this hugely violent action sequence, which is amazing. Tons of great needle drops going on, tons of great decapitations and splitting in half.
Just ridiculous.
And some honestly, one of the great action sequences that we've seen so far in the 21st century.
And I heard, because he knew that these giant ending fight sequences, for at least certain people, maybe people that aren't used to the genre, can get a little bit... I think the word might be overzealous. It's just they last almost too long. I think he actually said that there was something with those old kung fu movies where the final 20 minutes could get a little bit straining, just because they don't switch too many. They don't switch the direction a lot. What with the way that he does it, he switches from color, then he goes to black and white, then he goes to silhouette, and then he goes back to a comedy thing where she spanks the one Yakuza boy and all that. He does 4 different sequences throughout this giant final battle, so it feels fresh
and it's layered.
and over
It's
again.
layered with drama, and it's layered with comedy. And the movie itself
boss battles.
The movie takes
Go-go.
all kinds of turns in the structure and the flashback. I love how it even takes 5 minutes to kind of delve into the emotional art of sword making. With Hanzo's character.
That's one of my favorite sequences. It's relaxing. It's to watch him just look at the samurai sword.
Again, there's just so much care paid to, and love, obviously, that
so
Tarantino
much
feels
passion.
for these films and feels for
you feel it in every
a lot of these
shot.
characters. Yeah, no, it's wonderful. And that is where the filmmaking gets into it, because the filmmaking, especially that last action sequence, is some of the most fetishistic violence I've ever seen on screen. And it's magnificent, don't get me wrong. But and it really does reflect the bride's character, but she loves every second of decapitating these people and splitting them in half. It's so much fun. The crowd gets riled up because there's this palpable catharsis that everybody feels from seeing her get this kind of revenge is
Yeah.
what it is. But like even against people who maybe don't deserve to be as brutally killed, but you're still you get hyped about it.
Because I mean, those dudes are nothing more than hired security guards.
Yeah, which is why when she spares the kid, it's a nice little moment. Because you're like, this is what you get for messing with the Yakuza.
And I actually heard that wasn't originally in the script, and Uma Thurman saw this kid and was like, he's too innocent for me to kill. So they came up with that whole thing.
Uma's so great.
Where they were like, I'll just slice his sword, spank him, and do that, make it a comedy moment.
No, she truly is this character, which is the main thing. I guess we haven't.
She understands it like no tomorrow.
No, she co-wrote the character, and she really does get it. And her performance is honestly a huge part of what makes this work at all. The way that she can twist a line to be witty, the way that she glares in fury
too.
rage.
Some of these lines are very exploitation genre lines, but she makes them
they're
so
corny
cool.
as fuck. Some of them,
but she makes them
She's
like
so
cool and like she adds charm. It's truly unbelievable sometimes.
Yeah. So we get this big, violent, crazy action scene where we just revel in all of this murder and all of this
blood,
all of this craziness,
buckets of blood,
and it all builds to the moment with O-Ren where they both look at each other. O-Ren realizes that this is where it's going to happen. This is our showdown.
Yeah.
And at first she's like, I'm going to win this. I'm taking this on. And the bride's like, I got to do this. And I love that there's this moment where O-Ren makes fun of her because she's just like, oh, you silly Caucasian girl, like
playing with katana swords.
Yeah, like you don't know shit. But then she does actually get a good hit on her. And there's that lovely moment where she's just like, I genuinely apologize for like making fun of you, like
the sense of respect for each other.
Yes, and there's an understanding between the two, and the performance for both of them was what really sells it.
They are amazing in this movie.
Yeah,
which I gotta just get to as a side note here, like who's Lucy Liu? She's one of those actresses that's kind of very hit and miss. And it seems like a lot of these actors that Tarantino works
she
with,
just was never cast correctly.
Yeah,
is what
he can just bring out the best in these actors, because a lot of those actors in the Assassination Squad aren't particularly incredible, or at least haven't been given the shot to be incredible. But within these films, like he just knows how to direct them in such a way that they understand the character.
Yeah, absolutely. But what the scene kind of gets to, and how it's going to relate to Female Prisoner when we get into our discussion of that, is that this film, despite reveling in so much violence and having so much joy for most of its running time, there is a palpable sadness to the idea that these women are being pitted against each other by Bill. That Bill is really the kind of head of this Hydra that she's trying to cut down.
You feel for Lucy Liu when she gets
you do,
because you're like,
which is amazing.
I don't,
because you've seen her do some brutal, unforgivable
things. And up
things.
to then, I didn't think I was going to care that she dies, and then when she did, I was like, actually like your character. I don't want you to die. Like I felt something, which you don't normally feel when the girl finally gets her revenge. You know? What I mean?
and the fact that he includes a whole origin story for her too is a huge part of it. Like you don't
childhood included.
Yeah, you don't include that segment in there unless you're intending for a kind of understanding of her character to come into this, and if not as much an understanding as you have for the bride's revenge mission. Which is just the fact that this gets complicated in this way is really what sells this movie. That these people are making these choices, they're aware of the consequences, but and it's still sad. It's still sad.
Yeah.
So
because I mean, at the end, we get all the way to Kill Bill, Volume 2. She finally gets her relief, but there's such a journey to that relief.
Oh, and even then, there's still her performance. One of the best for Kill Bill Volume 2. That scene at the very end
where she's relieved.
Where she's relieved, but there's still that kind of it's a tearful, regretful relief. It's both, because that Michael Madsen has that great line where he's like, "You've got to the end of your days. Do you feel relief or regret?" And I think what you kind of see in that last scene with her is a little bit of both, because she's like, definitely. Bill was awful. This needed to be done. Yeah. But she kind of misses him, and now
that's all she knew.
And now she's with her daughter on her own, and there's that's
a whole different life for her. Yeah, she's learning how to live a different life at 35.
It's pretty absurd how emotionally complicated these these movies are for the content,
otherwise
of the films that you're watching.
It is truly unbelievable.
So let's enter the reductive rating round, as we always do, where we erase all of the nuance and all of the complexities of words that we just went through, and we reduce the movie that we just talked about to a rating between 1 and 5.
Just a statistic.
Yeah. So Kill Bill Volume 1 for me, easy 5.
Easy 5 for me too.
Yeah, it's among Tarantino's best films for me. It's easy top 3.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, for me too. Definitely. Easy 5.
Sweet. Well, that was Kill Bill Volume 1. And next up, we're going to be talking about Female Prisoner number 701.
Scorpion.
바라냐 통행하るさしたかないがささぐにゃ燃える燃える燃える女の恨みいぶし月に一度は
All right, so we are talking Female Prisoner number 701, the Scorpion, the first movie in a trilogy of movies about the female prisoner number 701. That is her name.
That is her name.
This movie is by Ito Shun'ya. So the opening frame of Female Prisoner is that of a Japanese flag, being honored obviously by a bunch of prison guards at the moment. They are being awarded the best prison award, which is not a great sign.
No. And also, whoever delivers those awards or sets those out, you're wrong.
Yep.
You're not very good at judging.
Pretty objectively.
Yeah, pretty objectively wrong.
But what happens in this opening scene is there's sort of like this kind of nationalist behavior of them, of the guards being awarded for rehabilitating their prisoners or for at least keeping them in line better than any other prison, which is quickly interrupted by a giant alarm going off because 2 prisoners are on their way out.
And broad daylight, which apparently is not normal because everyone's freaking out about it. The balls on these girls.
Yep, because everyone's like, damn, who could possibly be doing that?
It has to be Matsu.
Matsu.
Is that Matsu?
Yep.
Did I get that right?
Yeah. Matsushima Nami. So she's on the run with her friend Yuki.
Yes.
And they are running through a field away from, obviously, the guards and also these dogs that are chasing them down. And this is one hell of an opener because it immediately sets the stakes where clearly they are being brutalized because they send those dogs after them, and those dogs are going to be pretty violent.
Yeah, they're not just going to grab them.
Yeah, and for a movie to open also on, like, dog murder.
yeah, right away. The dog just gets beaten.
They do the dog in, and they're being chased by just, like, a sea of Japanese men who with guns and dogs and sticks and all kinds of things that they're prepared to beat them with.
And there's something else when she has, and I didn't know if this signified something specifically, maybe just, the fact that they're so oppressed within the prison, but it mentions when the girl gets her period on the run, and that's how the dogs sniff them out too, or at least that's what it seems like visually. It mentions that she hasn't had it in a while. So I'm assuming that means like they've been in such an environment, whereas the body might be changing.
I kind of got that too, that it seems like now that they're experiencing this freedom, that even their body kind of feels it. That now it has an opportunity to,
and as soon as she's been released and she's out in the wild, it seems like, her body's kind of
functioning normally again.
Coming back to normal.
Yeah, so it seems like she's becoming a, not that she wasn't a woman, but she's coming into her normal self again is the idea.
Almost just becoming a human again.
Just from like sniffing freedom. Because again, they don't get away in this scene.
No, but she gets a taste of it, and it's enough to to bring her back.
Yeah, so she gets in. They obviously this breakout goes horribly wrong.
Oh yeah,
they don't get away at all.
They don't get away.
They get captured. They get
the
captured.
start of the plot, in fact.
Yep. And yeah, imagine a prison film where the opening is they get out.
They
of
get
prison.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like-
never to return.
Woo! That was good. Nice happy ending.
Yeah. So what they.
No rapes.
Yeah. What happens here is they get captured, and we get an amazing title sequence where the moment where she realizes that she's captured, she looks back at all the Japanese guards and just glares at them with these huge, wide, furious eyes.
Yeah. Just total confidence. Like I'm not afraid of you, really.
Like I know what's happening here.
Yeah.
Like she's like you can see her visualizing the revenge in her mind right then and there.
Right.
And then the as the credits start rolling and we get this amazing song, the Her Vengeance song, which again
is sung by the actress, wasn't it?
I believe so.
Yeah,
which is just
very
awesome.
cool.
The frame dissolves into what basically looks like all of these naked female prisoners on like a conveyor belt,
basically,
where they're forced to hop over and spread their legs over this thing while the guards underneath get to
Just
kind of
look.
get to peek
and they are blatant about it.
it dissolves into the conveyor belt, and then again it dissolves into the guard's wide eyes as he's clearly frothing at the mouth, looking up at all these women. And right there, you kind of get an idea of the dynamic between the guards and the prisoners, and especially that very specific gender dynamic between the two, where they are under control, they are being watched, and
they don't just view them as prisoners. They're
sex objects.
Yeah, exactly.
Of course.
He's ogling these women. He's not just like,
Yes.
okay, you don't have anything.
Yeah, no, it's very sexualized.
Definitely.
And that's where
and
we
throughout the film too.
Oh yeah, totally throughout the film, because that's kind of it's the film itself is obviously getting at the idea that this is in its own way this is a lead up to violence and violence.
Mm-hmm.
That this is the beginning set of your mind where you stop registering these things as people, these prisoners as people.
Yep.
And it's where you can do horrifying things like rape, which is what ends up happening to Matsu when she gets back in. It's
as the punishment, and they're trying to get answers. What was the answers for? Actually,
I don't even remember.
I don't remember either. Just because now in my brain it doesn't quite connect. Because why would they be getting answers from her after she's escaped?
Well,
maybe it was how she escapes.
I think she gets brought in, and they are just punishing her at first.
Okay, right.
Is that they separate her and her friend Yuki into kind of cells where they can hear each other. They're on opposite sides, and there's a nice moment where they kind of bang heads on the wall as a signal to each other, that to say that they're okay. But then the soup lady comes in, who is a lady who again, this is female prisoner adopts this thread even more than Kill Bill does, but this is the women against women. This is a lady in the prison who has gotten power in the prison by selling out the other women. Yeah. And by
basically just being
another guard.
Right, yeah.
By joining the guards in their violence, which is what makes this even more interesting, is it's saying that this violence isn't just by men. That it is a clear system of power.
Right.
And that it definitely favors men in this particular situation, but women can be a part of it, absolutely.
Right. And what's interesting too is that she doesn't just do what the guards tell her to do or anything like that.
Oh no,
she's doing things out of her own malicious intent. Like she's
bringing in the burning soup and is pouring it on them
because torturing them
because they just think they're coming to feed her.
Right.
And that's not to say that the guards have altruistic intentions.
No,
of
I'm
feeding
sure
her.
if they didn't know, they wouldn't care. Or at least they would punish her as well.
But the soup lady has her own idea of, I'm going to enact punishment on these girls because look how beneath me they are.
Even to the point where she not only doesn't allow her to feed, she just plops the slop right in front of her, but then takes a wet blanket that she soaks in a puddle and puts it over her just to make her more uncomfortable. It's not. I thought, at first
it's
it was
malicious.
just it's totally malicious. Yeah, she's doing it not just for her to feel safe. She's just doing it because she's almost enjoying it.
Yeah. So what happens here is that Matsu hears Yuki being tortured by the soup lady, and then the soup lady comes over to her, and Matsu knows what's going to happen. So Matsu manipulates the situation so that the giant pot of boiling soup falls on the lady's face,
and ironically
and burns
using
the
rug that she put over her too.
Yes,
which is pretty satisfying.
Yeah, and here's where you can tell, because again, we're like 5-10 minutes into the movie, she's already in revenge mode.
Oh yeah, like she's like, fuck this. Yeah, I'm done.
So she takes her down, and then that's why the guards are torturing her, because they want her to confess that she intentionally hurt the soup lady.
Right.
And then while she's getting tortured by the guards is when we get the first flashback that lets us kind of find out how she got into this situation, how she became this person, and is one of the craziest sequences in the movie for me, which is where it goes back and it shows you that she was in love with a detective. That there was a Japanese detective who was hunting down some sort of drug lord or crime boss or something like that, and that she was in love with him. And the movie takes great filmmaking pains to show you what a real sex looks like for her, real consensual sex for Matsu looks like.
Yeah,
and it's amazing. She's wrapped in this white blanket, or this white sheet, and it's this really dreamy sequence where
it's like a moment of pure bliss.
Yeah, and he's like
the only part in the movie.
he's like unraveling her, and she's like, she loves this movement that they're doing, and then he gets into the sheet.
It's really beautiful.
Yeah, it's a really sweet moment in an otherwise pretty horrifying film. And
which I guess is when it comes crashing down, when essentially because it goes from the she unravels the sheet, and then doesn't it forms into her rape eventually, where the Yakuzas come together.
Yes, because it goes from that, and then it goes into the sheet with the period blood on it that looks like the Japanese flag.
Right, we should mention that, which I thought it might have been. I don't know if it was necessarily her like losing her virginity.
It could have been.
It could have been
the suggestion.
I guess she seemed like a grown woman, and I didn't know. Well, maybe also Japan could have had a different social stigma
for sure.
To that.
But even then, it's still, even if it doesn't like track literally, like it's still as an image.
It could just represent innocence or purity in its
or it could be the same thing to do with the opening, where it's this freedom.
Right.
Where it's like this. Yeah. There's a feminine freedom going on here, and something beautiful that's happening. And immediately it goes from that into she would do anything for this guy.
Yeah.
So she goes undercover for him into this crime ring, where she just gets sold out. Pretty fast. All of the guys. It
almost seemed like the first meeting that they had.
Yep. All the crime bosses, or all the like guys who work for the crime boss, recognize that she is police, and they gang rape her pretty brutally, and it's a really horrifying scene where you get this Dutch close up of her face as it's happening, and it's a really painful shot to watch. And her performance again is really selling it.
Yeah, and what's amazing is when it shows. It just shows her face, and it kind of just shows the backs of everybody.
Yes.
And then once they go under the floor, and you see all of these Yakuza bosses, like,
and their faces. There's like 4 or 5 of them in the frame. It sets in an
emotion of like pure, just you're frightened for her. Like it's
and there's no escape.
At all.
Is the end, because
surrounded.
Because again, either you're in the tight close up of her face where she can't escape, or you're being overwhelmed by the faces of her attackers.
Right. Who are very happy about what they're doing.
Yeah, like very sadistic. Yeah. And the shot is like through glass underneath the floor behind her head. And again, you just
such a shot.
Like you can't escape either situation on this, and it cuts between those two sequences. And then it has this kind of expressionistic moment where the red light behind the glass on the floor lights up, and her hair goes all over the place
too, where it kind of like it does this.
She almost looks possessed.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 thing, and then her hair is perfectly like in a sunburst kind of formation and everything. And I almost felt like that was her.
It's
both her rage
snapped.
coming. Yeah, it was both her rage coming up to the surface, as well as almost a calculation of I am fucking shit up now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because right from there, it shows her trying to stab the dude on the streets. It goes right to it.
Well, yeah, and right before that, though, we have the scene where she, like, the guy, her lover, the detective, comes in.
Oh, right, and the use of the setting is
it's so good.
It's like a stage play almost, how they use it.
Because he comes in and he's just like, oh, yeah, this was all part of my plan. Like, who cares about you, blah, blah, blah.
He literally says something like, it's like, you guys are under arrest for drug trafficking, and then it's like ...
and now
rape. Yeah, like it's kind of like he's just kind of like also rape, and you're like, damn, bro, like fuck, like how about they're probably rape is the worst one.
but at the same time, it seems like a bonus is the way that he sounds like it.
He makes it sound like it's not that big of a thing. He's like, you guys are gonna go to jail for drug trafficking. Oh, also that gang rape you did. Yeah, like a nonchalant action.
And then the set does kind of like a theater set move where it does that kind of trap wall switcheroo.
Yeah,
where it reveals reveals the
amazing.
crime boss and the detective being like, okay, now we have an understanding. We have a deal now.
Yeah.
And so she was totally just a tool to use at his disposal.
Yeah.
I believe that's why she ends up going to prison, is because she was not only crime affiliated, but then she tries to stab him on the street.
Yeah.
And they're
wildly.
Like, yes.
That's the one thing is that I like at first I thought it was like she was that scene represented like a complete calculation, maybe like a plan, but really it was just her rage because she just goes full rage. On back to this, like she goes to the street and just starts swiping.
Yeah, she has no, like she doesn't have the resourcefulness yet to pull that off.
Yeah. The only calculation she's made is she wants revenge and that's it.
Yeah, and rightfully so.
Yeah,
and then that's what the rest of the film is that she learns resourcefulness in the prison.
Right.
Is in fighting these guards and fighting this giant system which she sees as just an arm extension of this same guy, the same kind of mentality. And so we have that flashback that kind of contextualizes all of that. And then we come into, she is going to fuck shit up. She's going to escape, or she's going to make life hell in this prison for these guards. Yeah. And that's where we get more of the guards start signaling her out as a reason that they're punishing all of the rest of the women, which makes the women kind of have harsh feeling towards her.
Right.
And then they try to, I think they try to frame her by putting like some sort of like shank or like a digging tool in her
Actually,
in her clothes.
I think it's I think that's why the fight happens in the in the shower, because I think it's actually Matsu,
which is amazing,
that puts the shank in the girl that she doesn't like's clothes so that she gets in trouble.
Well, no, because she sees that someone else, like she sees that girl is going to do it to someone, and then she does switches it to the girl.
Okay, gotcha.
Because again, she's just kind of has like a more passive fury when she's in the prison, because she knows that obviously
especially when it comes to the women.
Yes,
because I feel like she knows that even though some of them are being terrible, she understands the system that they're in right now.
Yeah, so she doesn't do anything to anyone who doesn't otherwise seem like they deserve it in that situation.
For sure.
And then we get an insane
probably my favorite scene in the whole movie.
Yeah,
are you talking about the shower?
Yeah, the shower sequence
where she's like, I don't know if this is incorrect or not, but it seems like the makeup that they add to her, almost it was like stage makeup that they'd put on like a demon or something like that. It was very cool.
Especially the turquoise lighting that accentuates the lines on her face.
Yeah,
and
the blackness around her eyes, and she even has like a Chelsea grin kind of thing. The cut, the Joker thing, basically.
Yeah, and she's trying to kill Matsu for what she obviously planted that device on her. Mm-hmm. And they even add like a bit of like the violence with the sex, because like while she's running around, I mean she's completely topless, but there's no sex involved in it. It's just like even though she's topless, you just see someone unhinged. Well, and because she's still vulnerable, right? Like she's still in the situation. She's in a perpetual state of being unclothed and being open, and probably uncomfortable. And what's amazing is that when this girl is pursuing Matsu to like beat the shit out of her, Matsu again is still passive. She's backing away. Only
really
when the
doesn't
girl
fight.
pursues her, she slams the glass in her face.
Which is such a great little moment.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
And then she picks up the glass and she's chasing Matsu to stab her. And Matsu again is doing this kind of like deking motions and stuff like that until the lady swings at her and she just nails
the guard.
And like the warden, like the
Yeah,
head dude,
the
right
top
in
dude.
the eye.
And
with the glass.
I just gotta give, like, he's a dickhead, but my God, he took that like a man.
Yeah.
He just kind of like takes it in the eye and is like,
And then starts
all right,
choking
ladies,
her. Yeah.
we're done here. It's like, dude, you are an animal.
Yeah, and the moment it goes from that kind of like turquoise, really heavily stylized, like demonic, chase sequence that's happening in there, to all of a sudden the realization that she stabbed the warden in the face, and she just totally goes back
to
into
normal.
like the vulnerable prisoner mode again.
The rage has left, and she's self-aware again, basically.
Yeah, and it's kind of like that's what the movie ends up going through sequences of, is that there's this brutal, realistic system being imposed obviously on these women, and of violence, and then there's the kind of this expressionist filmmaking that captures how they feel emotionally about it and what drives their actions later in the film, especially when we get to the major sequence, which is the hole digging.
Which is so well filmed. Oh my God.
Yes.
You feel that entire scene, like as he circles and he shows like just her in this giant crater of a hole and everyone else just kind of surrounding her and watching as it's happening. And
yeah, and there's so many great moments in this where like they're telling her to start going again, and the camera starts like spinning around her. The camera almost does like these really gymnastic movements to show you the physical bodies of the space, but also like the geography of the scene itself, and how she's in a giant dirt hole that she's dug herself. It's really great set design, and it's really great camera work and lighting, and I was honestly stunned by a lot of the filmmaking, especially for this being an early 70s film, which is not to say that they had bad filmmaking, which is just to say that this you almost don't feel some of the datedness of this film watching it because of the
use
stylization.
of lighting is truly unbelievable in this film. Like I was captivated by it. And then the sequence when the riot finally breaks out and you see the big like red sun in the background, and it's just a straight shot on like the ground, and you see this like orange skyline behind them and all that. Like it was
because again it's all of a sudden like that sequence of like the lady chasing her in the shower full of rage. All of a sudden it applies to all of them, and they're instead directing it at the guards this time.
Because it shows the entire prison just. It's lost it. It's chaos now. Yeah.
And again, it's all kicked off by that great moment where Yuki sees that they might even kill Matsu because she's unconscious on the ground and they're like trying to beat the shit out of her.
Yeah.
And Yuki in slow motion, pure silence, just comes at him with the shovel and just like nearly decapitates the guard with a shovel. Like it's pretty insane. But yeah, that sequence, especially with the big red sun that comes up again, coming back to the Japanese flag, which is obviously the big red sun.
And they do a lot of references to throughout the movie with the Japanese flag, or at least a circle with red.
Again, because
it has to represent the flag. I mean,
and again, it feels like it's indicting the entire culture itself. Yeah. That it's saying this all happens in a country's government system, which is being like, come on,
like why?
like how is this
shouldn't be?
Yeah, how is this allowed to happen?
Yeah.
Well, the riot is just a great example of the overall stylization of the film. This like obviously this kind of like harsh lighting, and there's this spacey music that kind of comes up every now and again too. But the main thing that happens during the riot is that Yuki gets killed.
Yeah.
And in that moment
sets it off.
Yeah, in that moment that Yuki gets killed, the sun shifts from red to blue. And all of a sudden, there's again, same with Kill Bill. There's like a sadness in that. Again, this is women a lot of the time being pitted against women for reasons that shouldn't have to be, for like systemic reasons. That shouldn't exist. And but the big thing that happens is that Yuki tells her about the the other woman who is being paid by the detective to like kill her in prison. Because this is a big plot point, is that she's being pursued violently by another female prisoner, so that again, just like the soup lady, so that she can get a step up on the ladder.
Yeah.
Because again, women are willing to sell out other women for a place in the current power structure.
Right.
And what Matsu,
what
Matsu is trying to do is tear down that power structure.
Right.
Because again, she's seeing that it's bad for all the women, but there are clearly women in this prison who are willing to sell out the other ones to get a spot in it, to become a guard.
Yeah. And I mean, you've seen that just in history itself. I mean, it happened too within the Holocaust. You know what I mean? Like, these systems, they almost create a situation where, like, you obviously there's blame to be had for these women, in this situation that are doing these things to Matsu and all that.
But again, you can't ignore the context for how they got there, right?
It's like you almost understand why they're doing it. It's like either she's that person or she's Matsu, and she's on the lower end of the totem pole. So she's just playing the game, and unfortunately, that's what the game is. It's a terrible, terrible game.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happens as Matsu comes to pursue her. And what they do is, because of the riot, they now have control of the prison, and you see what the prison looks like with the women in control. Mm-hmm. And what's fascinating is that the first thing a lot of the women start doing is raping the guards.
Yep.
And you're just like,
did you think that was like a sexual expression at that point for them?
I think
was it more of a power struggle?
It was a power thing.
Move,
it was being like, we're the guards now.
Yeah.
But and
we have the power, we have the control, and we'll do whatever we want, like you have done to us.
Exactly. And what the girl who's pursuing Matsu does is abuses the situation and has all the girls turn on Matsu, and then they string her up. And they beat the shit out of her because, again, they all blame Matsu for being in this situation, despite the fact that, again,
the guards,
and
the system,
it's the system. Like, they don't get the power, that the power dynamic is the issue, and that they instead they want to blame just someone for it. So they blame Matsu
because it's the easiest route to take, and it's obviously the most obvious.
Exactly, because it's the most surface level critique of what's happening in this situation.
You just see she's associated with all of this; it has to be her fault, and they go for it.
Yeah, so what ends up happening, though, is that the girl goes a step too far and tries to light Matsu on fire and burn the whole prison down. Right. And the other women realize what's happening, and all of a sudden they're like, whoa, like, we didn't sign up for all burning to death. Like, what the hell?
We were just beating her up a little bit.
Yeah, the guard and the guards do sneak back in, and they take control again, which is a bit of a depressing ending at that point, where you get this, basically the guards just assume power again, and that the riot didn't really accomplish a whole lot. But again, because the riot's goals weren't correct.
Yeah.
They weren't, they had power for a second there, and they didn't use it to try and, they tried to get food, and then then they raped the guards, and like this was not the action that they needed to take to get this done.
No, not at all. But I think they were just so overwhelmed by the power at that point where they realized it was revenge, really.
It was revenge.
It was a form of vengeance on all the oppression that they felt over these years.
Yeah, and then what Matsu does is Matsu does get out. Matsu does escape, and there's this great sequence where she basically becomes the villain in a slasher movie, and just one by one,
coat, and she's almost like a secret agent in a way.
Yeah,
like
she looks like she's dressed for like a funeral that she's gonna kill everyone at.
Yeah, for real.
And she just one by one starts picking off all these dudes as if she's like Jason or something, and leading. And again, because she's decided she's gonna take down the heads of the system. That these are the people who orchestrate all of this. Even the guards in their own way don't control it. These guys control it.
Right.
So she's killing them all off, and she finally gets to the detective, and she has this great moment where the only death that is slow is the detective's. Yeah. Because there's like a 5-minute sequence where she's chasing him down, and he's huffing and puffing, and I think he's been stabbed like once, even twice.
Yeah.
And he's like trying to run away, and he's like squirming away, and he looks so pathetic.
And which is amazing because throughout the entire first half hour, he's like suave and like kind of, he's not cool, but he's got that cool attitude. Like he's just like, I got all my shit together. I'm a success. I'm whatever. And then you see him just as this like pathetic human being running from his person that he oppressed, essentially.
Yeah, and he what's interesting is that the violence that she perpetrates on him, and like the slow way that the filmmaking kind of has, it's almost painful to watch in the same way that some of the earlier stuff is to watch.
Right.
But again, she's like, this is what you've done to us. I'm going to make you more so than any of the other people, you're going to experience this slowly.
This pain that we've all felt.
Yep, and then once again, we get the knife in the air, right?
Yep, right in the middle of the Japanese flag. Like it's a heavy symbolism there in the film.
Yep, and we get again a great shot of her face looking back. It's the same eyes.
Yep.
She's got it. Determination. She
Yep.
made it.
She did it. And what's up? I forget this part. She goes back to the prison, right? Because at the end it ends with her in the prison. Or is that? Yeah, but the way that it ends is more like a credit ending. Because it's her walking in the hall, and then it pauses, and then it goes Scorpion, or whatever, her name is Scorpion, and then it ends.
Right.
But she's in the prison.
Oh, I totally blanked on that part.
Yeah, well, I kind of did too. I didn't write it in my notes, but I don't think in the movie, and once again, our viewers can maybe correct us if we're wrong here. I don't think that they show her going back to the prison, but I was a little confused by that because she kills the dude, and then the ending sequence is her back in prison. So I was a little confused by that, but I mean, it still works perfectly.
Yeah, absolutely. So I say we enter the reductive rating round.
Yes.
As we always do, where we take away all the words, all the nuance, all the complexity, and reduce the film into a rating between 1 and 5. And honestly, this is going to be the first double 5 for me. Female Prisoner's gonna get the 5.
Nice.
I went back and forth on it a bit, but I eventually landed on it because the style, the expressionistic filmmaking, the kind of like theatrical nature of it, and how it so well captures the psychology of both her revenge and of both the active system of oppression that she's involved in, is I can't pass it up.
Yeah, no, I feel you. I am gonna give it a 4 right now, but it's one of those films that I feel it's a high 4 right now, and it was a high 4 right away. It's one of those films I feel like maybe over time it'll just latch on to me like with that 5.
Totally.
But right now I'm gonna give it the high 4. Yeah.
Sweet. All right. Well, that is it for... Whoa, I'm dropping phones. All right. Well, that is it for Female Prisoner, number 701, Scorpion.
Such a good one. Oh my
Such
God.
a good one. Yeah.
So glad we got to watch it.
Yeah, we got two
Thank you to Willow for showing that
thanks,
one out.
Willow, for this suggestion, because it was two great films to talk about, especially in relation to each other.
Yeah. Worked perfectly.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, guys, for tuning into this episode of Sleazoids. The reaction so far to the show has been overwhelming and we're very happy about it.
Having lots of fun.
We have 2 patrons to thank this week. We both have Pat Miller as well as JC Emery.
Yes.
Both new honorary Sleazoids who are very glad to welcome on with everybody else, and we hope to see more of you guys soon. Again, if you guys want to subscribe, you can at patreon.com/Sleazoids podcast. You can also find us at Twitter at twitter.com/Sleazoids pod.
Yes.
You can find me on Twitter at the Josh Ella.
And I'm at Jamie Miller, ACAS, ACAS, all lowercase.
Normally in this part of the show, we tell you guys what we have in store for the next episode. And I think what we have is we're going to have a guest episode. We're trying to secure to make sure that we have the guest.
Yeah.
But what we're going to be talking about regardless is we're going to be talking an Ozploitation double feature, which for those of you not in the know is Australian exploitation. 2 films I haven't seen or heard of.
Yeah, I know I haven't.
But they have some amazing plots involving violent people fighting back against nature, or like nature trying to take people down. It all sounds like absolute craziness. I know one of the taglines was something along the lines of, "Their crime was against nature. Nature found them guilty." Which is just
a classic line.
Which is good shit. Good shit. So those films,
Guilty.
Those films are going to be Long Weekend from 1978, as well as Razorback from 1984. So we hope to see you guys tune in for that episode.
Which one is the more well-known one?
I haven't heard of either of them.
Yeah.
The guest who we will reveal when that show eventually airs nominated both these films, so it's going to be real interesting because so far I've seen at least one of the films we've talked about every single week, and this episode, no clue about either of them. So either way, it sounds like it's going to be a fun episode, so make sure to tune in for that.
Please do.
Anyway, guys, thanks so much. Keep it sleazy.
Keep it sleazy, ladies and gentlemen.